Hi, I'm Cathryn Stormont, and this is SEO in 2025.
Cathryn, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
My tip is very much around core web vitals and making sure that that is not missed when SEOs are looking at other elements such as content strategy. It's usually one of the things that gets missed, and user experience is becoming more important than ever, especially next year, to make it work.
Okay, so why are core web vitals so important to user experience?
So core web vitals are Google's indication that there is some kind of potential issue, hopefully not, but on your site, which will then lead you to sort of investigate a little bit more about user experience. Things like the LCP, largest contentious paint, and first contentious paint, all these little things measure the page load all to sort of image rendering, and making sure that that is less than 2.5 seconds, and looking at things like CLS, which is Cumulative Layout Shift, which is basically any movement in the site. What it will do is these core web vitals will show where there's URL issues, that you'll be able to isolate the specific URLs where these occur, and then that will provide the sort of framework to look at user experience on those particular URLs, what's going on, and using various different tools to do so.
Great summary there. Shall we dive into the 3 core metrics of core web vitals? Maybe starting off with largest contentful paint. So how would you summarize that, and what does it impact?
So it's usually one that developers struggle a little bit to get working, but basically it's the point where the website first loads to the very last thing on that page to appear. So it's image, text, it renders. So it's the how long that takes before a user will actually see all the information that they need to see. There are various different ways that you can basically optimize that. Things like preloading certain images. So one of the tools that I use with developers is particularly Google Lighthouse, which is in your developer tools. And that will kind of give you some general tips of things to improve. And what it tends to do is it shows the largest contentful paint image, and that will allow you to sort of think, okay, maybe we need to look at preloading that image, and other tools you can do to look at minimizing your JavaScript and or CSS, and try and help if there's any blocking resources going on in your site that may be slowing this down. So it's really all about page load, really. That's what that is. It's basically measuring page load.
And when it talks about the 2.5 seconds, is that for everything to load?
That is, yes, for everything to load as the main. Yeah.
Okay, so everything. And what about if it's a long page that obviously goes down kind of way past the bottom of the screen if we're looking at it? Do those elements count as well?
Yes, it would be. It's certainly including all the elements of a page. So if it's long or short, it's in terms of making sure that comes up very, very quickly for the user in.
Okay, so the user experience is essentially the page loading as fast as possible. So as soon as they click on the URL, they've got all the information that they expect to see, and they're not hanging around.
Exactly, and that will prevent people. That's why things like bounce rate is another factor. So it's in terms of not only looking at your core web vitals, but looking at the Google Analytics data around bounce rate, around your general engagement rates, and how much time people are spending on site or on certain pages. All that will kind of give you a feel as to, is there a wider issue going on? Why is that? Why is our LCP low? Why is it not what it needs to be?
Got you. So essentially, bounce rate, if it's high, could be because of a couple of issues. Well, it could be a few issues, but a couple of issues could be the fact that the page is taking too long to load. Another issue could be that the content's not relevant to what the user perceived that they were actually going to click on as well. Obviously, there are other potential positives, such as the user being satisfied that they have the answer that they're looking for from the page itself, and not proceeding throughout your site as well.
Yes, I think bounce rate is one of the ones which you have to take with a little bit of pinch of salt for various reasons. That, yes, it could be they find what they're looking for straight away. It could be that, down to content as well as user experience. However, that's why you should look at that in relation to other metrics, as in looking at the LCP, as well as looking at things like your engagement rate of that page and whether there's when it's causing any drop-offs, if you're trying to get sales down the line from that site, or you're looking to get more registrations, where is the drop-off? And so it's one of these metrics that needs to be looked at with all the other metrics as well.
In context, yeah. So essentially, bounce rate is an indicator that something may be wrong, but you have to research into it and find out what the issue is. It's not the bounce rate that's the problem; it's the indicator.
Yes. So we're using the Core Web Vital indicators. We're using Google Analytics indicators to then work out, okay, these are the URLs with some issues. Let's look at other user testing tools. So you can use things like Hotjar, which is your screen recording, which will allow you to sort of have a look at how users are interacting with that page and then potentially identify some user experience issues to fix. So basically using Core Web Vitals and Google Analytics data as a start point in this whole process, really.
And the next main metric in Core Web Vitals is interaction to next paint. What does that mean?
That's very much looking at the general responsiveness of the page in terms of looking at the interactions. It generally needs to be less than 200 milliseconds, and actually all these little metrics basically mean all down to page speed and page load. It's just various Google ways of interpreting it, but it's generally page responsiveness.
Page responsiveness. Okay, I'm trying to just clarify that and make that as easy as possible to clarify. Obviously, Google have a relatively lengthy post on that can be consumed, but essentially, it's not the first step. So does that mean that the user has to click on a button and then it's the responsiveness of the page to actually start to deliver the next page?
Yes, it's about how it delivers what it intends to do. So if you've got video content, if you're clicking on various different links on the site, if you're the purpose of that page, if the purpose of that page is to read through and then go to a call to action, is there responsiveness? Are people clicking around, moving around the page? Is there something going on? It's kind of things you can sort of use with where people are doing hotspots and trying to look at that kind of data and just seeing how responsiveness that page is can help with that as well.
And the next metric is cumulative layout shift, CLS.
Yes, so CLS is one of these ones which basically measures the movement in the site. So if there's any major jumps or slight movement, and sometimes it's not obvious to the natural eye, but Google is measuring that to if the code is not particularly well structured or things are not very smooth in the site from a development point of view, then yes, that it can. All these little things can affect sort of movement in the page. It's again another little measurement really for not necessarily page load, but the next stage in terms of how well the content's moving within the page.
So I don't know if this is a question or more of a complaint, but why, if this is an important metric to Google, do we have so many newspaper sites that you get on them, and as soon as you get on them, the whole page shifts down and a big advert appears that after about 5 seconds or so, and there's just no user experience that's any good at all there?
Yes, I agree with that. I agree that that's not the greatest user experience, and I think ultimately that's why I should definitely move away from having the ads when you just start reading it one. But yeah, absolutely. That should be definitely one to avoid.
That's annoying. So are these metrics likely to change or be added to over the next couple of years, do you think?
I think that they may be added to. I think that the challenge with these metrics at the moment is explaining them in a real sense. From a developer point of view, that they may even the developers struggle to understand exactly what they're trying to do here. And I think it's so if there's a way, I think Google hopefully will make it a little bit more easy to understand the metrics and what they actually mean and what the developers and other SEOs can actually take action from. So I'm hoping that, one of them hopefully might become easy to understand, but I think there'll be more metrics that will come out of this potentially. One thing that's probably not obvious in the metrics at the moment is these are very fundamental to page speed, but they're just sort of breaking it down. There isn't an overall page speed metric within this.
I mean, it's tough because, I mean, it relates to so many different things. It depends on where you fit contextually with other businesses in the same categories you happen to be in the SERP. And if you're a relatively poorly performing website, maybe loading in 5 seconds or so, but all your competitors are even worse than that, then it's probably not so much of an issue for you, I guess.
In terms of the business side, yes, if your competitors are generally not have such a well-performing site, yes, from a competitive point of view, it wouldn't affect you as much. However, these little metrics are actually really important for ranking now, and I think it's actually going to stand you in two ways. You'll be better than competitors. You'll hopefully have an impact on ranking, and it'll just create a better experience for your customers, and hopefully you'll get more customers out of it. So I think if you can get your site in a much stronger position than your competitors, then it's a win-win, really.
I mean, do you have any ways to measure the impact of working on this and improving these scores? Is there a way to define things from a financial or business purchase perspective?
It would be how you could kind of go about this is if you especially if it's a sales generating site, how much your sales, you can quantify. If you can try and get that conversion rate up on that particular page, then you could see an X amount increase in sales and try and sell it in that way. Because a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to generate traffic into the site, and SEO we do. But what gets forgotten about is this whole user experience sometimes. And I think if we could just work on trying to improve the conversion rate and your conversion rate optimization, you can try and quantify that in the business. If they can just try and get that up by 2%, that would make potentially, you could estimate how much additional sales that could make. Or if it was a lead generating site, then potentially how many extra leads it can make if we could get a better conversion rate.
So if an SEO is working on a large organization and there is maybe a conversion rate specialist there as well, then it sounds like this is an activity that perhaps they should own instead of the SEO. What would you say to that?
Yes, if in bigger organizations you've got a conversion rate optimization specialist, absolutely. Well, I think that the SEO's role in that would be very much bringing them to attention, things like Core Web Vitals and what the issues that in the URLs that they're seeing, and other tools such as running Google Lighthouse. All the indicators can at least highlight the issues that they're having, because that will affect the SEO performance. So it's a case of working closely with them, but they should definitely be the ones that own. If there is UX teams in bigger organizations, they are the ones that should be owning it. But I do think that it's important as an SEO to take responsibility to actually helping improving those scores.
So how often should Core Web Vitals be checked, and how much time should be spent in it?
It would certainly be one that it doesn't necessarily change vastly, because it's measuring the whole site, but it would be one that you'd be put into regular checks on a monthly basis, just to make sure that there is no URLs that are coming up poor, because often not you see a lot of on mobile, you see a lot of sites seeing there's poor URLs, so it's worth checking that regularly, and also running things like the Lighthouse scores and just making sure that they're in a good position and good high percentages on a sort of regular monthly basis. It gets trickier when you work with smaller. So the bigger companies have got the resources, the time, and to do that. And smaller companies, this is where I feel that I think this could get missed, that they're spending quite a bit of time on optimizing the content, which is the right thing to do. But if without looking at the technical SEO elements and the user experience, and just working with your in-house developers or agency developers that you've got.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time thinking about Core Web Vitals in 2025?
I would suggest stop producing too much content. So absolutely focus on the quality content with all the latest AI developments in terms of AI summaries. It's important to have credible quality content. So take that time that you'd spend on filling a blog quota per month and put that into more technical SEO and Core Web Vitals, and looking at the user experience of your pages.
Cathryn Stormont is a freelance SEO consultant, and you can find her over at digifreelancer.co.uk. Cathryn, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Well, thank you very much.
I've been your host, David Bain.
Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.